Well, hello, entrepreneurs, and welcome to another episode of the Entrepreneur's Edge. If you're new to the show, it's all based around a newsletter put out by Eric T. Whitmoyer, who's the founder and CEO of mybizcoaches. If you're interested, definitely scan one of the QR codes. A lot of great content. If you're running a business today or thinking about running a business in the future, a lot of great tips and practical advice. So definitely check it out. And Eric, you recently put an article out around data-driven decisions for small business owners, and I happen to see a clip that you put out on social media. So I want to play just a little bit of that, and then kind of ask you a few questions about the article and this clip from social media.
If I were to say there's three things specifically that keep business owners from growing, one of the biggest ones by far and away is that they don't know their numbers. They don't know their metrics. They don't know how their metrics convert. They don't know, for instance, if I've got 100 leads a month and we close 30 of those leads, I have 30 transactions. They don't know that information. Another big challenge that
So yeah, great clip, Eric, and you go on to share a lot of other advice. So definitely check out Eric on social media. But as you're kind of diving into that, it sounds like this is a mistake that you see time and time again as a business coach. So maybe let's start with kind of square one here. Why is it important for business owners to really understand the data within their business?
Yeah, it's a great question, David. I think that it really kind of starts with the vast majority of business owners are not well versed in financial information in general, meaning, like many of them are adverse to their P&L. They don't want to look at their P&L, and not necessarily because it's bad, just because they don't like looking at that stuff. And if you think about it inherently, the more that I've done this, the more I realize I'm like, they actually started their own business because they didn't want to have to go the corporate route. They didn't want to do some of the things that you typically would do in that space. And so ironically, the more that I do this, the more I realize that the owners who are avoiding, they don't want to look at the balance sheet. They don't want to look at the P&L. Even if it's a good number, they'll look at it and be like, okay, yeah, but I don't want to know the rest of it. That's fine. Right. And then
there's money to count, right? So we're good.
Right. That's all I'm worried about. And there might be some logic to the fact that maybe that's all that's important.
Yeah.
But but the reality is, cash flow statements, all that kind of stuff. And so they don't want to deal with that. And so there's this natural inclination to kind of avoid that kind of data. And that's not even the data I'm referring to. I'm actually talking more specifically about the KPIs. And so when we sit down with a client, what we help them identify is, okay, look, I'm not talking about your profit and loss statements. I'm not talking about cash flow statements. Let's talk about what are the numbers that drive the day-to-day activity in your business. And so, David, you remember very well our time in our previous employer. We had numbers dialed in. I mean, it was like we had metrics for metrics, right?
Yep.
And one of the biggest things that I learned about that time with that company was, and I had always been really good about analyzing numbers and data and stuff like that. But what we took it to another level, right? It was like all you needed to do was tell me how many door swings we got on a location, and I could tell you, generally speaking, what our profitability on a store should be.
Right. Yeah. Because you knew we could execute all the other KPIs.
Exactly. Right. And on a company-wide average, right, even though this market this and this market's here and this market's here or whatever, on a company-wide average, we knew 99% certainty, 98% certainty, this is what we could expect.
Yeah.
Because we've done it so many times over and over and over, hundreds of stores, right? I mean, the data was there. And that's why the data is so important, because it allows you to make very, very strategic decisions on just a few key components.
Right.
You don't have to have a ton of information. You can, once you understand what your primary drivers are for your data, you can literally narrow it down to a couple of key numbers and use that to make really important big decisions that'll allow you to do it with confidence and know, hey, within whatever percentage, 1%, 2%, 3%, I'm very confident that we're going to come within those numbers.
Yeah. But I think, as you're talking about that, right, one of the things that was critical in that business and is critical for a lot of small business owners is forecasting, right? And if you don't have that level of data, you don't have those KPIs. If you don't even know what your KPIs are, it's extremely difficult to forecast. So any thoughts on that aspect of it?
Well, yeah, and again, I'll go back to the financial data. The problem with financial data specifically is it's usually 15, maybe even 30 days old by the time you're reviewing it.
Right.
So how do you make an intelligent decision on what to do with the business today when the data that you're looking at is compiled from 15 or 30 days ago, right? And all of that is telling you what happened 30 days ago or 15 days ago, right? I don't know what it tells me about what I did yesterday. And so, I know if I use this analogy before on here on the show with the plane, right? The analogy of a plane, how often the plane is off track when it flies, right? And it's constant course corrections. Well, the only way you can make those course corrections is if you look at the data daily. So you have to have information that you're reviewing on a day-to-day basis. How many leads are you generating? How many of those leads are getting through to, how many conversations are we having from those leads? What's our conversion ratio from the point that somebody asks for information on the website, it comes through to somebody on a phone call, gets to a salesperson, right? Somebody follows up with that client, whatever the case may be. How does that process look like? And then now I'm having a conversation with a client. What's my conversion ratio there? How many times when I actually talk to a live client, do I convert that? Is it 3 out of 10? Is it 5 out of 10? Is it 10 out of 10? Whatever that is, until I know those numbers, right? I don't know what it's costing me to generate a sale. Right. So I have no idea, is my ad spend actually returning me what I need to return? We can go on. I can go on for hours, because the reality is the more you break this down, you think about, okay, ad spend. The way that you determine how much money you should be spending on an ad, what's the lifetime value of your customer? Well, how do you determine the lifetime value of the customer? What's the amount that somebody's going to spend on a transaction? Let's just say it's $100. How many times will that same customer come back to you? In our wireless experience, what was it? 2, 3, 4, 5 times? I mean, every 2 years they were renewing contracts. At one point, they were renewing every year, right? So each time it was a sale. Now, each sale wasn't as profitable necessarily, but each interaction created another sales opportunity, which now maybe I'm adding an additional line of service. Maybe I'm adding a tablet or a watch or some tracker for my car, right? Each one of those is a revenue generating sales opportunity that I can piggyback bundle onto my transaction. And so now if I add up all those transactions that an average client might have with me over 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever that looks like in your business, right? Now I know that let's say it's $100. Let's say we'll just use wireless. So let's say it was $300 in the front end, and each subsequent visit with a client, it was worth $150, let's say. So, and I can expect to see that client 5 times.
Right.
So the first time is $300, 4 additional times is $150 a piece. So that's $900. So average lifetime value of a customer is $900 to me as a business owner, right? Knowing that, how much am I willing to pay to generate that lead?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And general logic in the financial sense, 10% ish, maybe 20% if you're in a growth phase, you're trying to ramp up business. If you're super, super conservative, 5%, but you have to factor some kind of ad budget, some kind of marketing budget to generate those leads to bring that business in, knowing full well that you should get 3, 4, 5 additional sales from the average client. Now, some could be 10, some could be 2, but if the average is 5 and the average conversion is 300 and then 4 transactions of 150, I know the lifetime value is $900. And if you're tracking that data, all of that is real. It's just simple math at that point.
Yeah.
Now, everything I just said, for many people listening to this show are probably going, I don't even want to deal with all that. But now, because I know that the amount of money that I want to spend to generate that lead is $90.
Yeah.
So if I sit down with a marketing agency and say, I want to generate leads at $45 to $100 per lead, can we do that? And they'll work through and they'll say, okay, well, here's an option that'll get us at $30 a lead. Here's an option that we'll get at $60 a lead. And so now you can make intelligent decisions. Otherwise, you're just spitting in the wind. You have no idea where that's going. You have no idea what to expect. Yeah. And this is why most owners are struggling when they decide they want to scale, because they don't know where to start. Well, the first place you have to start is understanding what it's going to cost to acquire those new customers.
Yeah.
And that's understanding lifetime value of the customer is one of the first places you go.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, those are some great kind of marketing and sales metrics. I'm thinking about, the entrepreneur that's maybe watching or listening to this, and they're just trying to figure out, where do I even start with? What do I even measure, right? What are the things that I
Right.
should be measuring? And then kind of, go from there. So, any advice on how to determine what are those KPIs? What are those things that need to be measured within their business?
Yeah. I would say, first of all, look where are the pain points. What are your biggest frustrations with your business? For instance, it could be something as simple as reviews, right?
Yeah.
We're just having a conversation about reviews, right? If
Yep.
if you are in a situation where you don't feel like you're getting your presence online, and which is deterring your ability to get more leads, bring in more clients, maybe even potentially convert clients, it could be because your reviews aren't good enough on your Google profile.
Right.
Because, by the way, most people do their research today because it's real simple to do digital research, right?
Yep.
So if I'm looking to make a purchase decision and I go and I look at somebody's Google profile, which is really easy to do, and I recognize, oh, look, they have no reviews or they have a 3-star average review. Guess what? If you're under 3.5, good luck getting business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recently just was doing the research on that and found, and they actually shared that anything less than 3.5, if you actually got business, it wouldn't come from online.
Yeah. Right.
People would see less than a 3.5 review. You're not going to generate new business from that.
Well, I'll tell you, if I see a sushi restaurant that's under 4, I'm not risking it. So I totally get that.
There you go. Exactly. Right. So yeah, but I mean, it could be something as simple as reviews. How many reviews do you have, and what's your average score? If you have less than 10 reviews and you don't have at least 3.5, good luck getting any business digitally from your Google profile, at least.
Yeah.
Now, there's Yelp and these other platforms as well. And then if you're marketing on some of these platforms, if you had less than 3.5 or less than 10 reviews and you're spending money on Google ads, the odds are not in your favor to really generate much business from that at all, which means you're wasting that ad spend.
Right.
Right. So again, I can quickly identify by knowing a few key numbers. I can quickly identify, is this a place I want to be? But so reviews would be a simple one that I would say I would definitely look into. The next one I would say is what's your lead count?
Yeah.
And people say, well, I don't know. Okay, well, how many phone calls do you get a day? They're business or sales oriented, I should say. How many people are calling in saying, I want to do business with your business? Or if I'm more of a retail brick and mortar where people walk in, okay, well then how many door swings are you getting a day? That's what we did in our space in the wireless retail, right? So how many door swings are you getting a day? And then you can back into, and even if the data isn't ideal, like I'm sure, David, you remember this, when we first started tracking that data, I think our original closing ratio was like 3%.
Yeah.
And so that was 100 people walk in the door and 3 people walked out with a phone.
Yeah. But it's your starting point,
right? Right. Well, and let me rephrase that. 3 phones went out the door. That could have been 3 phones to 1 customer.
Right.
But if 100 people walk through the door, right?
Yeah,
if 100 people walk through the door and 3 phones went out, our conversion ratio is 3%. Don't get caught up in the semantics of that. Just know, to your point, that's your benchmark. It's 3% closing ratio. And now, how do I improve that? How do I increase that? So then, and as you analyze what that does, is that now it makes you more critical about each customer interaction.
Yeah.
Was that a potential sales opportunity, right? So, but I'll get back to the question. So, some type of conversion ratio. How many interactions am I having in a day that's a legitimate sales opportunity? If you don't know that, you need to figure out a way to track that. And there are lots of ways to do that digitally. And that's where I think that's, again, I go back to not knowing the numbers. That's the biggest problem with most small business owners, is they're not investing time in understanding what that data looks like. Yeah. But you need to know your leads, how many people you're talking to that are sales conversations, how many of those you're converting, your reviews. And then the other thing you absolutely need to know is what's the average dollars per transaction.
Yeah.
Which, if you're using any kind of point of sale, you can typically figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But those 4 numbers would be the first 4 you start with.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned something that stuck out to me is maybe the metrics you start with aren't the ones you end with, right? There's kind of an evolution. I was thinking of the reviews you're talking about, start with what is my average review right now, but then figure out how many customers do I interact with per month, and what's my average ratio of customers that actually do a review, and how do I increase that? And so you can start to kind of build out sub metrics and kind of go into what you were talking about, where we had 200 different metrics, and we had some main ones that we focused on, but all these other ancillary metrics that kind of help you dial it in. And I think that's important to understand, right? But start with some data. I think you have some great recommendations, and then over time, evaluate, do I need to get maybe more micro aware of things within that data set, or are there other metrics? And I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, and as you say that term micro aware of additional metrics, right? I think that's where the real evolution and understanding comes from, is what's my conversion ratio? Well, like I said in the example I made briefly, 100 door swings and I close 3 phones. Well, was that 3 phones to one person?
Right.
Or was that 3 individual phones to 3 different people?
Yeah.
Now that's a great example of why do I need to be micro aware of that?
Yeah.
Well, if I recognize that it was 3 to 1 person, I could go back and look at that specific sales transaction and understand what was done during that conversation that equated to 3 sales on one deal.
Right.
That also allows me to look at the other 99 customer interactions and figure out what happened with those that they didn't convert into sales. Right. But again, without that metric, I have no idea. If you told me, David, if you're a store manager and you tell me, oh, geez, I didn't have anybody come in the store today, or it was really slow.
Okay. I don't have any data to argue, right?
Exactly. So, and this is where, this whole phrase, where it all really kind of stems from, is you get the average business owner that says, oh, it was slow today. Relative to what?
Yeah. Right.
Right. I mean, it's like, it could have been slow, but relative to what? I mean, how many times did we hear that excuse in our space?
Yeah.
And, it's like, okay, it was
slow. I learned not to make that excuse really quick when I was working for you. So yes, I remember that. Those words never came out of my mouth.
Not after the first time or two.
Yeah. I learned real quick on that.
You were a fast learner. I'll give you that.
We failed to convert on the traffic, sir.
But the point there is you take the average business owner that's not seeing the results that they want to see, and they turn to their team and say, what happened today? Oh, boss, sorry, it was slow today. Okay. Relative to what? It was, in Arizona, we have these rainstorms, and when it's a monsoon, is a torrential downpour, and nobody's leaving wherever they're at, right? If they're undercover, they're not leaving, right? So if it was a really crappy, miserable, rainy day like that in Arizona, you're right. My traffic could have been 1/3, but I still had, if it was 100 people normally and it was only 33 people, you still had 33 people.
Yeah.
Right. And 33 people, if you could average a 10% close ratio, would have been 3.3 sales.
Right.
So why didn't we get 3.3 sales? Right. And so to your point, it's like, but I can't do that without that benchmark. I need to know what and regardless of what the number is in the beginning, it will evolve. I wouldn't even say it could. It absolutely will evolve, because as you learn to appreciate the data, you'll get deeper into it and understand, okay, what really led to this, and what should I be tracking here?
Yeah.
What was the missed opportunity? But don't focus on that, right? If you don't have that kind of data yet, which many businesses do not, don't try and get there from here.
Yeah.
Just start with those first 4 metrics.
Yeah.
Right. How many sales a day? How many opportunities to sell did you have? Now we have a conversion ratio. What's the average transaction or average dollar per transaction? Simply take the sales for the day, divide it by the number of transactions done. There's your dollars per transaction. Yeah. Does it matter that somebody bought $1,000 and one person bought $1? No, it doesn't matter. Just take an average. It'll build over time. The data, the averages will play out over time, and then you'll be able to extrapolate more and more understanding of that data. That will then lead to better and better decisions.
Yeah.
And opportunities for improvement, right? Because now I see trends that I can build out of that. But without that data, and this is why you see Amazon getting into the data space. That's why IBM's been in the data space. That's why all these tech companies are in data and trying to capture more data about what we spend our money on, how we spend our money, where we spend our money, because now they know where to spend their money to drive us to where we would go by, spend our money on their products or services.
Yeah. So it's, as you said this, Eric, I'm going to say something that you may disagree with, and that's totally fine. But I would say somebody maybe listen to this and they think, I don't have all this time and money to set up, digital tools and analytics and all that. Sounds complicated. I think just like your initial data set is a starting point, I also think, if needed, start with very basic tracking. I mean, I think back to, like tick sheets for sales and traffic, or handheld clickers that you'd see at like, a ride at the fair, right? And things like that. But, start somewhere, and you can improve your methods just like you improve, the metrics that you track. But start with somewhere, and don't allow yourself to buy into an excuse of, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't have the technological understanding, right? Those sorts of things. Those are excuses, right? Find a way to get that baseline data and then build from there. So again, I know you're all about automation, AI. We both love that. So if moth base, correct me, but that's where my mind went as you were saying that.
Anything is an improvement over nothing, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing that I've come to appreciate in my entire life, that which gets measured gets improved. Yep. If I can't measure it, I can't improve it. As a matter of fact, this is an extension of personal development coaching.
Yeah.
In the personal development space, the first thing they teach you is 100% responsibility. Mm-hmm. You have to take 100% responsibility for everything in your life. And the reason you have to do that is without that acknowledgement, you can't change it. Mm-hmm. As long as I can excuse it away that it's your fault, David, that I was late because you were driving, right? Then as long as I can blame you for it, I don't have to take responsibility. I'll never fix it. I'll never change it.
Right.
It's the same thing with your business. If I don't have access to the information, how can I adjust it? How can I correct it? And even if you're a passionate business owner and you want to improve your business, but you have no idea where these benchmarks are, you don't know where your business, I mean, how do you get from here to there without knowing where you're at in the map?
Yeah. Right.
That's probably the best analogy, right?
Yeah.
I can't get from Phoenix, Arizona to where do you live in Utah again?
Lake Utah. It's all the north, I know.
Yeah. But how do I get from here to there without knowing where I am first, right? And so that's what the data is really about. Find a way to measure that, to your point, right? Find some way to measure something. And generally speaking, you can get to some of the data that I just referenced. But now that you have that, right? Now another example would be web data.
Yeah.
Website. I'll bet you of our current client base, or the client base that we've had over the last 4.5 years, I'm going to say very comfortably, at least 3/4 of them probably had zero understanding or zero knowledge of how much traffic was going to their website.
Yeah. Crazy, right?
Full on 75%. I'm going to say 100% confidence now. 75% of our clients, 3/4 of them, would not have had any perspective when we first engaged with them as to what their traffic was on their website.
Yeah. Which, and going your point, right? I mean, first, what a blind spot to have as a business owner, because everything's online, but also, just get that data point, look at it monthly, and, maybe you're not a web expert. You don't know, what good is, right? What is average traffic? What should it be, right? But what we do know is, here's what it was last month. It went up or down this month. And then after 6 months, you kind of know what an average is, and well, hey, we went up, and why did we go up? And you start asking questions, and then boom, now you're starting to get useful data. So I think that's a great illustration of exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I'll share this for any business that's a service-based business where they think, well, I really don't do a whole lot of online business. Like, I don't sell a product, I sell a service. It takes a physical interaction, David, for you and I to engage in a sale. We get on a Zoom call or however I sell that to you. Coaching, prime example, right? So I have I have a marketing person I work very closely with, and that individual worked with a client, a coach, a life coach, not a business coach, but a life coach. And they their website traffic, they were getting about 54 hits a month. So almost 2 a day.
Yeah.
Hits a month on their website. And they were trying to scratch it out as and so he worked with them, and this is more Google profile, right? Bolster your Google profile, get your reviews up, gets more traffic. And the work that they did took them, with just 90 days, took them from 54 hits a month to 2,044.
Wow. Huge lift.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Sales tripled.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, oh, where did all this business come from? Well, people are actually going to your website now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the person that did it was convinced that it would have zero impact on their sales.
Wow.
Because I don't sell online.
Yeah.
It's not about selling online, Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner. It's the fact that you're seeing more people are seeing what you do online, because
Right.
that's where they go to get their information. We don't
Yeah.
watch the news anymore on TV the way that we used to. We go
Yeah.
on social media. We go
Yeah.
on websites. We go research the. So if I see that you're a business coach, or if I search life coach, if I search life coach on Google, and we're in the same general vicinity in the city of Phoenix, for instance, then there's a likelihood that you're going to be pretty close on the site, and just because you're physically closer than I am. If your Google profile's in a decent place, you would easily go from 54 hits a month on your website to a few hundred.
Yeah.
But with the work that they did, they went to 2,000, and the sales numbers tripled.
Yeah.
In 90 days.
Yeah.
But
I think they weren't measuring it at all. Start measuring it, take some action to improve it, and now they have this gain. I mean, yeah, it's an incredible story.
And that was the crazy part. There was nothing done that changed the sales process, anything. All they did was optimize the Google profile so that more people were seeing the website. It created more phone calls. And the irony is even though it created more phone calls, the client did not realize where the business was coming from. It was coming from, because they were still calling. It was just they were getting the phone number from not even the website, but the Google profile. Yes, it increased the website traffic, but the numbers listed in the Google profile, and people started calling that number and started generating more traffic. And that's where the bill. But when the marketing person sat down with the owner of the life coaching business and said, "Wow, let's talk about how all the success you had," he's like, "Well, it really hasn't come from the website." You're right. It hasn't come from the website. It came from people calling from the phone number on the website, which you can track that link.
Yeah.
Right. And so they had all the embedded data in there, which a few $100s to do that. And you're not talking about tens of thousands of dollars to build that kind of data. So to your point earlier about, well, I don't have the money to make that kind of investment, it's really not that much. The problem is, if I don't understand it, I assume it's either really expensive or too hard to do.
Yeah. Right.
And and this comes full circle. This is why people would want to get a coach, because a coach can help you understand this, identify what would be valuable for your business and how you can benefit from it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great comment to end with there. And as you're talking about getting a coach, I know that you do a great job helping small business owners identify their metrics, their KPIs, think about different ways to track. And so I just wanted to throw this up here. But yeah, if you're interested in booking that free consultation with Eric or one of his coaches, they go through a 12-step process, identify what your key metrics are, where they can improve, your bottom line, your sales, all that sort of stuff. So definitely head over to mybizcoaches.co or scan that QR code. But yeah, what does that meeting look like, Eric? If somebody came to you, they watched this, saw this, and said, "Yeah, hey, I need to be a little more data driven. I need to figure out my metrics, or I need to understand what to do with the data I have." What does that conversation look like with you or one of your coaches?
Yeah. So initial conversation, 30, maybe 45 minutes. It really kind of depends, but it's a series of questions that we kind of go through, and truly understand where you're at on the map. How much have you done? What have you tried? What's your primary focus? And then once we identify some of those things, we're able to plug some pieces into our software, identify some opportunities, some really quick, significant improvements into the business, how we could increase lead traffic, how we could increase closing ratio or dollars per transaction, or whatever it might be that's going to help give you an immediate lift in revenue based on your current trends and what you're currently doing. And often it's just a matter of uncovering what are the missed opportunities, right? So it's just something, uncover that. But that's our primary focus. And depending on how long somebody engages with us, as far as a coaching agreement, usually we can only affect one or two, maybe three key metrics in some defined period of time. So it's our whole focus is how quickly can we get you a nice return for the investment, and how quickly we can get that identified and then executed and get it in place so you get the result.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I love it. Yeah. So again, if you're interested, just scan the QR code, mybizcoaches.co. I know Eric or one of his team members would love to chat with you. Eric, at the beginning, you talked about what are the pain points, right? And I think that's a good starting place with a coach is here's where I'm struggling. Here's, opportunities, challenges, right? Those sorts of things. And then I think the conversation really grows from there. So definitely take it. Doesn't cost you anything. You might as well have that conversation and move closer to your goals. Speaking of goals, Eric, you have an aggressive goal this year for mybizcoaches. You want to share a bit about that with our audience?
I see what you did there. That was good. I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we have an aggressive goal. My goal last year was over the next 3 years to put 100 coaches into our program and get 100 coaches certified and out helping small business owners. Last year, we were able to bring in, I think, a total of 6 coaches. And through that period of time, uncovered and recognized some gaps and opportunities in our model and how we can get this to go faster, how we can make the engine go faster, right? And so we uncovered some opportunities. We were able to tweak some of the program and make it more cost effective. Identify who is a best fit for our coaching model and who would be a good candidate for us that would bring the right tools to the table, so that we could introduce what we know and what we've learned over the last 4.5 years of being in business and give that program, that business in a box to our coaches. So our plan is to put 100 coaches out there in the 2024. I think we've got 4 right now as we speak at the 19th of January. So excited about the opportunity and where we're going with this. Most importantly, I'm excited about being able to impact that mission. Because our billion-dollar mission is nearly impossible without a team, a pretty good-sized team, maybe a small army. So we need to find more people that are passionate about helping people improve their businesses. And if you've got any kind of acumen, whether it's marketing or sales, maybe you worked in the operations department or area field of business, and you've got experience working with businesses and you understand business. Be a great opportunity to become a coach and learn how we help clients grow and scale their operations.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and again, that QR code, or you can go to the website. No cost to have a conversation and figure out if it's a good fit for you, right? So maybe you've thought about coaching, maybe you're not sure if it is the right fit, or kind of, why would I do this versus other businesses that are out there? Why not pick up the phone, have that conversation with Eric, and see if you'd be a fit for mybizcoaches. So love it. 100 coaches, man. It's aggressive, but hey, you've got your starting point and you've got your end point, and you've got a plan to get there. So you're already ahead of people that don't have those metrics, bringing it full circle there. That's awesome.
That's our 2024 BHAG.
There you go. That's awesome, man. Well, anything else you want to share before we wrap up today?
Yeah, the last thing I was going to say is that we do have a webinar coming up in February. We'll get the official date and time here shortly, but we have a webinar coming up where we're going to describe in the webinar for about 45 minutes to an hour exactly how we help those coaches get their businesses off the ground, up and running. And if they're already an existing coach, some of the things that we integrate, I can speak, into our program so that we can help those coaches that maybe not been able to find clients that they wanted to find or the types of clients they wanted to find. We help them do that, identify that, and do that more effectively, as well as all the additional tools and resources that we've been able to aggregate over the last 4.5 years. We can introduce that and make that part of your tool set as a coach so you can be more effective. And if you're an executive or somebody in the business space that looking to transition, through this webinar, you can learn more about what we do and what we're offering and how we can make that an interesting experience that I believe that you'd be very excited about trying to help other people grow their business.
Awesome. So more to come on that. I will say it will be on the website once it's available. So by the time you watch or listen to this, mybizcoaches.com/events, all the events are going to be listed there. So definitely check it out. And we'll be posting that link on Eric's social media. So definitely check that out. You saw the video clip from earlier, always putting good content out there. Same thing, the newsletter on LinkedIn. So make sure you follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And same thing with the show. So if you found value in this, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss miss future episodes. And Eric, it's always a pleasure talking business with you here on the Entrepreneur's Edge, and hope you have a good day.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
All right. See ya.